Live from the city that never sleeps. 17 miles from Madison Square Garden, New York City. It's America at Night with Rich Valdez, America's favorite late-night talk program, featuring interesting guests from around the world and calls from across America. And now, here is your host, Rich Valdez.
Hi there, good evening, and what's up, America? I am Rich Valdez, Valdez with an S, at Rich Valdez on all of the social media. Welcome to the Tuesday night edition of the program. We're live, we're national, happy to be here. It's truly a blessing to be on the mic and to be with each and every one of you. It's 7 minutes past the top of the hour, and our phone number, if you want to join us on our late night national town hall conversation, Open Phone America is going to be starting in a little bit. Here's the phone number, 833-482-5337, 833-4-Valdez. And I want to get into a bunch of things tonight, not the least of which is going to be talking about crime and pardons and all sorts of stuff that is going on in Washington. But there's other big things, right? There's a big headline today about the government knew about a potential attempt on President Trump's life, or at least a threat on his life, and didn't act. They took it not so seriously. They dragged their feet and they put his life in danger. This is, again, something that I think many people kind of thought, and now we know. Not a good thing. Then the rise of Islamists, which are not Muslims per se, but Muslims that have been radicalized, that believe in and support the terrorists amongst us, like Hamas and others, that are moving into positions in government. There is now a madman in Minneapolis. His name is Omar Fateh. And I'm not sure if we have that audio clip today or not. You let me know, Mr. Good, if we do. But Omar Fateh in Minneapolis is the new rising star. Some comparing him to another Obama, if you will. But to give you a little bit of the scoop on him, he is from Minneapolis and looking to make some noise, right? He's looking to make some noise. He's looking to make a name for himself. He's being framed as the next Zoran Mandani, or as I like to call him, Moron Madmani. And he's running for mayor of Minneapolis. He is an assemblyman in Minnesota, and his background is. Hold on, before I get into that, listen to this. He is. This is from Breitbart. He's accused Lauren Boebert of being a white supremacist. He's proposed free college tuition, which of course is just a handout, and he wants to cut police funding. Where have we heard that before? Right? It seems like that's everybody's go-to move. More college, because again, the indoctrination happens in college. Quick aside, a friend of mine called me today. Is a kid I went to high school with, and he's done well for himself. He got into banking and insurance and kind of stuck with the banking. Went to the military, came out, landed in Texas, and has made his family there. He's made his whole life in Texas. And he called me today to tell me about a particular Christian college that he wanted his son to go to, and his son was interested in going to. And he consulted with me a bunch of times just because my kid happened to be in one, and I knew the founding president of that particular college, not the same one my kid went to. And anyway, long story short, he tells me, hey, my kid got an acceptance letter and he's in. I said, oh, congratulations, that's fantastic. And, we're talking about things, and I said, it's funny. I remember when his kid was like in 8th grade is when he decided he wanted to go to this particular school, and he hasn't lost his zeal about it. But I've lost mine, right? And not for that school. It's not about that. It's about college overall, right? On this program, I've talked about colleges reaching the point of diminishing returns, and I feel like we have surpassed that point. There are very few college educations that are going to pay for themselves and with dividends, it's not what it was. There was a time in our country where you could go to school, get a 4-year degree, and it complemented your career. It made a lot of sense. You made more money along the way, and it was a really good thing. I don't believe that's the case anymore. I don't think that it's not a barrier to entry in many different career fields. And I don't just mean if you want to be a blue-collar worker in one of the trades, an electrician or a plumber or something like that. No, I mean in lots of things. Yeah, this is a new world. You've got people that, used to have to go to school for broadcasting to get into broadcasting. That's not really the case anymore. You've got people now that don't even need to get jobs in broadcasting to make a bunch of money in broadcasting, right? They could start their own podcast. They could start a YouTube channel. They could start a TikTok account and make a fortune. Funny story. There is a producer that I used to work with in radio, and she moved on to television, and she's done phenomenally well with a fluke, right? She started off doing TikTok videos as a fluke, and it worked. Got over 1 million views on her first video as a food review. She did another one. And advertisers just keep coming after her, and she continues to make more videos that reach millions and millions of people. And this is creating a lot of money for her. Fantastic, right? God bless America. She didn't go to school for broadcasting. Or maybe she did. I mean, like radio and TV broadcasting, but definitely not for social media. But there she is, being a big-time influencer with 4 million followers on TikTok. Right? And this woman was a radio producer and a TV producer. So, has nothing to do with food review. She didn't go to culinary arts school or anything like that. So my point is, I feel like the internet has changed the game. I think also Google changed the game when they really started saying, look, we're not going to hire people with degrees per se. We're looking for people that have, at the time, like C++, different types of certifications in the IT world. And I think they've only followed suit with that. Then the onslaught of DEI, where many people had to make accommodations and say, you know what, if we want to hire a more diverse workforce, then we're going to waive some of these requirements because historically there have been barriers, financial barriers to getting a degree for some minority groups, not all. And one of the things that happened was you went from Hispanics being, I think, in the second percentile, right? Second, right? So about 2% of Hispanics back in like 1999 or 2000 were completing a baccalaureate degree. Enter George W. Bush and then the Obama administration. And in those 16 years, man, did the things change, right? All of a sudden, Hispanics are graduating from college in record numbers. I mean, it's phenomenal, right? But at the same time, things had changed in colleges. It wasn't the same. I remember when I was in college, in NYU in particular, 2001, let's say, and it was very, very hostile towards me. It was hostile towards anybody of faith, anybody who didn't agree with the more liberal, progressive approach to the classroom conversation. And, and I've shared this a lot. I didn't know then what I know now. And they were able to push me around a little bit. That's not something that would happen today, right? Today I'd probably be walking around with a bunch of money in my pocket from a lawsuit that I won. But at the time, they were able to get the better of me. And it just makes me think, how many more people and for how much longer are going to be sending their kids to school? And again, this was a complete tangent from this story about Mr. Fateh from Minneapolis. But ultimately, is that the way we stop manufacturing Omar Fateh? Is that the way we stop manufacturing and producing Mahmoud, I forget his last name, from the guy who started the Columbia riot, and the rest of these radicals, right? AOC, right? It's not because of their faith. It's because of their ideology. Do we curtail the growth of the squad by telling people there's lots of ways to make money, and they don't all revolve around college? So that's a good conversation that we can continue to have throughout this evening and into tomorrow and the next days as we, as we move forward in the week. But that's a question I have for you, for we the people. 833-4-VALDEZ. Is college what it used to be? Is it worth it, or is it not? Plus, I want to get into the story of our buddy on this program, the Tiger King, right? Joe Exotic from the Netflix series, who has been lobbying President Trump for a pardon. And in doing so, has he gotten his attention? I know at one point, I think President Trump said, no, I won't be giving him a pardon. But I think that was the last term. And I'm wondering, has there been any mention of that in this term? I don't know. But I do know that Joe Exotic had an appeal going because of certain admissions that were made by the people that were witnesses that put him behind bars that undercut their own testimony, according to him and his lawyer. And we're hoping that he'll be giving us a call in a little bit from the Federal Corrections Facility to set the record straight on that. So we're looking forward to that. Plus, President Trump's pollster, John McLaughlin, is going to weigh in on CNN saying that Trump is now underwater on immigration. And why? Is it because of all the lies they're telling? Is it because of all the stuff we talked about last night where everybody on the left is making stuff up, no matter what you do? Listen, today, doing my show prep, I was around 8 o'clock at night, Eastern time, and I turned on, and I never turned this on, believe it or not, and not at this hour. I'll take a look at it earlier in the day. But around 8 o'clock at night, I watched CNN Live, and there was, every report was distorted. The first one was about a coach. They interviewed a coach in New York City, and he was saying, I couldn't believe it. He said, I never thought I would see the day. And I'm thinking, well, what happened? And he said, ICE officers, ICE agents approached the kids that were playing. He's a baseball coach. And I thought to myself, really, he never imagined that the police would come and ask some questions. I mean, I guess maybe he's used to Eric Adams' New York City where there isn't a whole lot going on. But I didn't find it that strange that federal law enforcement would come and ask questions. They didn't come in a threatening manner. They came to ask questions. And interestingly, the guy said the kids were so scared. And they went and they told their parents, and their parents were so scared that now they're not coming to practice anymore. Now, maybe I'm being insensitive and maybe I'm being hyperbolic, but if you've got nothing to be afraid of, why would you not go to baseball practice? You think ICE is going to be there every day asking you questions? And if so, who cares? Aren't the cops always around anyway? I don't know. Maybe I'm seeing this the wrong way. But anyway, when we come back, we're going to talk more about that and a whole lot more. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
Well, thank you, Rich, and thank you for everything. I know you very well, and I listen, but I have a lot of people that listen, and they love your show, and I appreciate it very much.
America at Night with Rich Valdez.
All right, amigos, welcome back. We continue our conversation. Again, the phone number is 833-482-5337, 833-4-VALDEZ. And I want to circle back to something we were talking about yesterday. Right. Yesterday was a lot of talk about what is going on with the Epstein files, this and that. And somebody I've interviewed on this program before, Alan Dershowitz, Dream Team lawyer, former Harvard Law School professor, and former lawyer too, Jeffrey Epstein. And it seems like my schedule and his don't match. He's one of the harder guests for us to book at night. But Alan Dershowitz, he's been very complimentary when he's been on in the past, and he made a very, very, very poignant statement that I think is making its way all over social media. And if you haven't seen it there, allow me to play it for you. Listen to Alan Dershowitz in a conversation, I think it was last night, with Chris Cuomo from News Nation. Listen to this.
Is the government hiding a client list or anything that the Trump administration could release tonight?
No, there is no client list. There never has been a client list. A client list suggests that Jeffrey Epstein made a list of people to whom he trafficked women. What there is a redacted FBI affidavit from accusers. There are several of them. From accusers that accuse Jeffrey, that accuse various people of having improper sex. And that has been redacted. The names of the people accused have been blacked out. Now, of course, because I was the lawyer and I did only investigations, I know who all these people are. I could figure out, based on everything that I saw, who Mr. X is, Mr. Y is, and Mr. Z. I can tell you right now, none of them are public figures who are currently in office. Some of them were previously in office. Some of them are dead. But there is no client list. And the redactions could be undone if you go to court. So many of the things that are being suppressed by two judges in Manhattan. And they're doing it largely to protect the alleged accusers who are, in the view of the judges, victims, even though we don't know what their actual status is. But the judges have issued orders, which is why I can't disclose things I'd love to disclose, saying that you can't disclose this information. But Pam Bondi and the Justice Department and Donald Trump are not responsible for that. I don't know of any information that they could disclose that they haven't disclosed. Now, maybe there is some, but I'm simply not aware of it. And so I think it's important to place the blame where the blame deserves to be placed. The vast majority of people who are in the files, and I know them all, I've seen all the names, the vast majority of them have already been disclosed. They're in articles all over the world. They're in books that have been written. So if we got everything, you would be shocked how few names are there that haven't already been disclosed. The media hasn't, by the way, done a good enough job in finding the people who have been disclosed in the public record. So that's that list.
That's Alan Dershowitz, and I'm curious to know your thoughts. Do you think that this is an argument that you can get behind? Do you think this is something that makes sense, that there is no client list per se, but there are clients that are mentioned or accused for, as he put it, for having sex improperly? And those names are the ones that are being protected by a judge, including through a gag order that he himself is under. So curious to know your thoughts on that, because despite what you think or don't think about Alan Dershowitz, I think that's a pretty sound, logical explanation of what's going on. It makes all the sense in the world as to why President Trump is saying what he's saying. And I think people have created this expectation for something that simply perhaps doesn't exist. I don't know. Maybe you guys can change my mind. Anyway, folks, we're coming right back. Don't go anywhere. I'm Rich Valdez.
Look at Rich Valdez. He's now a radio host, and he's a great radio host.
America at Night with Rich Valdez.
All right, amigos, Rich Valdez keeping you company all night long, at least, till whatever time in your market. But I'm here with you, and our phone number is 833-4825-337, 8334-VALDEZ. If you're on hold, we're going to get to you momentarily. As I mentioned before, Joe Exotic, the star of The Tiger King, is joining us via a phone call from a federal corrections facility, and he's on the line now. Joe Exotic, welcome back, sir.
Rich, it's always good to be with you, man. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. Now, You were always the topic of conversation in different places, not just on this program. And I've got a clip of Jimmy Kimmel and David Spade talking about President Trump pardoning you. Listen to this.
I want to get pardoned by Trump. And I go, he's got a lot on his plate right now. I mean, there's a riot, Iran's on fire. I go, listen, we're going to have to push that down the list, but he'll get to it. Give him a second.
Yeah, he's pretty upset that he didn't get that pardon.
I know, he's like, got it.
Other reality starts getting their pardons, and he has no pardon.
I mean, I feel like just throw it in there. You never know.
At this point, why not?
Throw it in. You might get the...
Now, of course, they're making light of it, but this is your reality. You are actually behind bars in federal prison for, is it attempted murder, the charge that you're there for, Joe?
It's murder for hire, okay? Even though they got on world television on season 2 of Tiger King and admitted that they lied and everything else, I'm still charged with murder for hire because that's what they lied about.
Let's talk about the basis of your appeal. I know you explained a little bit of it to me, but for everybody else to understand, what was the basis of your appeal? And
this call is from a federal prison.
Well, a lot of people, and that's why I appreciate you letting me kind of explain some of this to the world, because it's not just me. It's tens of thousands of people that are in federal prison that are fighting the same problem. Okay, when the federal government arrests you, and keep in mind that they can convict you on hearsay where the state prisons, state charges can't, okay? When the state DA charges you, they have to actually have evidence. The feds only have to have 2 people to say you did something, and they can put you in prison. All right, so what they done was they got these 2 people to conspire and say that I paid them to go kill Carol Baskin. So that got me a murder for hire charge and a conviction because that's what they testified on. But the problem we have with this whole system, Rich, is, they arrested me, they held me without bond, they kept me in solitary confinement so I couldn't help fight my case. And then I went to court using public defenders because I couldn't work to pay real lawyers. And we filed, I got convicted, I got sentenced to 21 years, and then we filed an appeal based on over 1,000 exhibits of new evidence because we obtained all their phone calls and their text messages and everything else. And we clearly have the federal agents admitting on phone calls that they were helping fabricate evidence. But the problem is the government's lawyers that they hired me did not raise enough objections and cross-examine good enough. So my last appeal just last week got denied for a new trial. So basically I've got to live in prison and be punished because the federal government's attorneys that they hire for people didn't do their job because they're going to get paid whether you win or lose, They're just public defenders. So there's a lot of people in prison with me that just don't get a fair shake because they basically kidnap you. We talked about this on the last show that I did with you about the kid here in Texas that stabbed that football kid,
Oh, yeah.
He murdered somebody and got bond, but that's a state murder charge where the feds do not give you bond.
That's where you're caught up because it was a federal sting.
That's absolutely right, and they made it federal because of a cell phone. That's how they got it federal. And they knew what they were doing when they did this because they know how hard this system is.
Wow. Folks, again, we're on with Joe Exotic calling us from Federal Corrections Facility. And Joe Exotic, I want you to get your thoughts on some of the things that are happening politically. Since we last spoke, I know you like to weigh in on these things. The president has bombed Iran, and we've gotten, like peace agreements with several countries. Your thoughts?
Well, he's gotten some peace agreements with everybody. I'm scared that he's going to lose more credibility because he keeps issuing these threats and doesn't back them up.
Are you talking about Russia in particular?
Russia, Ukraine. He was going to end that war on day one, and we're here in 6 months down the road, and we're still toying with them. And then. I'm worried about the housing market and the agricultural market because it's not about kicking out the criminals in the United States now. It's about kicking out anybody that's illegally in here. And unfortunately, Rich, even though I think that people should come into America the right way, I grew up on a farm and grew up with Mexicans doing the harvest every year since I could walk. And I'm scared that they're scaring so many of the immigrants that you're not going to find anybody to build houses or work agriculture. And I think you're going to see the economy, the prices of that kind of stuff rise because they're going to have to double the salary to get someone to fill those jobs, if they can get somebody to fill those jobs. Because I don't think you're going to find very many normal Americans that are going to go out and pick strawberries and tomatoes. I just don't think you're going to do it.
Well, we don't need strawberries and tomatoes to build houses, but I get what you're saying. And I think on Friday, it might have been Friday, it might have been early Monday, President Trump made a statement and he said, look, we're looking to work with anybody who's been here for an extended number of years that's contributing to, in particular, he said agriculture, construction, and he kind of alluded to service industries. And he said where, it would be crippling to those economies. We want to work with you. He said, but we have to be fair. So I feel like President Trump will roll something out for the sake of continuity so that everybody keeps making money and gives them a path to legally work in the country and perhaps even a path to some sort of legality, whether it's a green card or a work permit or even citizenship. But that is not, policy yet. But it made its way around Hispanic media, and I know they grabbed onto that, saying, this is very antithetical to what those in the media have been saying. So I guess time will tell. Now, what are your thoughts on everything else that's happening domestically with respect to the state of politics these days?
Well, this Epstein thing is going to be a mess. I don't even know what.
You're not on that list, are you?
I'm definitely not on that list. But I think they need to release what they have and let the chips fall where they are, because it's about credibility and transparency. No different than any of the rest of us. But while we're at it, the prayers go down to the people in South Texas with this flood. That's crazy. But the blame game with the Democrats and Republicans wanting to blame each other on something that God created is just goes to show you how messed up the political arena is.
Yeah. Now, what are your thoughts? I want to circle back to the foreign policy, because I think a lot of people
is from a federal prison.
A lot of people have critiqued Trump for not being tough enough with Putin. And now he's providing pretty serious firepower to NATO, which is going to be giving it to Zelensky. And the stuff he's got right now can actually strike right into Russian territory. I think this is, some will say an escalation. I will say a nuance that, wasn't really the case before. If that is, in fact, the case, do you think that is going to help to give some leverage to the situation where either Trump can say, Vlad, let's make a deal, or where Putin himself might just say, all right, look, I don't want to keep doing this? Or do you think that's, not a possibility?
You really have to ask yourself how well Trump knows Putin, okay, that we don't know about. Do I see this thing escalating worse? I don't care if you sell weapons to Poland and Poland gives them to Ukraine. We're still the ones providing the weapons. No different than if North Korea gave them to Iran, and then Iran gave them to Russia. We're still in the middle of this war, and it's not de-escalated yet. And I think that Trump is going to escalate it. I really do. But I guess we'll sit and wait and see what happens. But I don't think Putin is going to fold.
Yeah. Now, and listen, I think I agree with you. I've talked to a number of people, and a lot of people say the only language that Putin understands is the language of strength. So I get that fully, and that may be the only way out of it, and I hope that it isn't. Hopefully the economic sanctions will work, but they haven't historically. Now, I guess switching gears a little bit to your world. You did that first season of The Tiger King, and you've been locked up since. Is there any possibility, the way you're doing an interview with me, that you can do a TV show from jail so that your fans can see The Tiger King a little bit more?
Well, you know, they did Tiger King 1 and Tiger King 2, and I haven't seen Tiger King 2, but we're actually already working on Tiger King, the Real Truth series that's coming out. And that'll be probably within the next 50 days.
Oh, wow. Is that like a Netflix project? Where can people watch it?
It's going to come out on Amazon Prime.
Outstanding. All right, cool.
Yeah,
wow.
yeah. This is being produced by my own people to where they have the original footage, the truth. Yeah, it's going to be an explosive deal because there's so much in there that the government covered up with the witnesses in the first show, and they testified against me about the rape allegations that they were doing and the bank fraud and everything else. But it's going to be all in season 3 of Tiger King, the explosive truth.
Season 3, The Explosive Truth. I love it. Joe Exotic, with about a minute to go before the Federal Corrections Facility cuts you off, let everybody know how they can find you.
You can go to joeexoticofficial.com. There's a lot of fun stuff they've got on there that you can get, or there's an evidence link where you can see all the new evidence that we have, and you can, the address on how to write me. I'll send you an autographed picture. That's what I got to do all day is sit and answer letters. So I'll send anybody a free autographed picture of me and a tiger. And you know, you were talking about David Spade earlier. You know, since David Spade has jumped on board with Jimmy Kimmel, you know, Representative Boebert's now out there voicing her opinion for a pardon. Representative Eric Burlinson. We're getting there. And you know, rumor has it that my name might be on the next round of pardons, but all I can do is pray Trump sees through the smoke and lets me go home.
Listen, he put an end to the Eric Adams prosecution that, even if it was heavy-handed and over-the-top and Biden doing an overreach, Eric Adams was guilty of something for sure.
Right.
You know, I think that Trump definitely does these things. I've spoken with Rod Blagojevich about his pardon, and he went into detail about the compassion.
I think he'll help me. I really do. Rich, this is going to hang up in about 15 seconds. Everybody out there, I send my love and respect, and I appreciate your support. And, Rich, I always appreciate you having me on.
You bet, brother. Thank you, folks. That's Joe Exotic, the Tiger King, joining us live from a Federal Corrections facility. Thank you, Joe. I appreciate it. Amigos, your calls, your thoughts, your opinions are coming up right now. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S. Live from the city that never sleeps. 17 miles from Madison Square Garden, New York City. It's America at Night with Rich Valdez. America's favorite late night talk program featuring interesting guests from around the world and calls from across America. And now, here is your host, Rich Valdez.
Hi there, good evening, and what's up, America? I am Rich Valdez. We're back with another hour of the program for you. It's 7 minutes past the top of the hour. Welcome Tuesday night. And here's our phone number, 833-482-5337, 833-4-VALDEZ. Make sure you check out the website, by the way, richvaldez.com. That is Valdez with an S, at Rich Valdez on the social media. If you're not following, make sure you do interact. Tag me and stuff, because I do check it pretty often for updates and whatnot. And of course, we're always getting into, the news of the day and other big topics that are going on. And one of the big topics, again, that seems not to want to go away is immigration. Not too long ago, last week, CNN chief data analyst Harry Enton did a story about how Americans, at least more than half, support the deportation of all immigrants that are here illegally. Fast forward to today, and now CNN is saying that Trump is underwater, that people no longer support the mission. Now, there may have been a shift in numbers, and that's because of the amount of fake news that's been out there, right? This initially happened when this was announced, right? When the enforcement operations commenced. There were people all over the place saying things, especially like, they're going after even people that are Hispanics and citizens like the Puerto Ricans. I'm still waiting. I wish I had a big budget so I could say, listen, I'm willing to give you $10,000 if you come on the show, if you're a Puerto Rican and they tried to deport you. It's not happening. I know it's not happening. If it was happening, these people would be taking to the streets. They'd be all over CNN. They'd be all over MSNBC. They'd be all over everything. Instead, Univision did one story where they obscured the guy's face. You couldn't see anything, saying that they didn't want to do it. Then some other less than reputable, I'm going to say, outlet reported a print story saying that at some mall, a whole family was accosted by ICE, and they tried to deport the mom and her daughter, an adult daughter, who was there with the grandchildren. Again, saying that she was claiming they were Puerto Rican. How dare you, blah, 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 because the ICE officer was in the mall and overheard them speaking in Spanish. The whole thing is contrived. Didn't happen. Why? Because if it happened, these people would be all over the place. They'd be on CNN at night with, what's her name, Laura Coates, and the rest of those primetime anchors. And these people live for this. They're dying to put somebody on TV saying, I'm Puerto Rican and ICE came after me, and they didn't care. I happened to have my passport on me that day, and I showed them. I have a blue passport. I'm born in the United States. I'm an American citizen, and they didn't care. They spit in my face and put me in their car. Right? This is what they want. They want that story desperately. If it's out there, trust me, they're going to find it. It's not out there. This lie that's being told, and look, I'm not here to carry water for ICE. I don't know anybody at ICE. I really don't. I'm carrying water for the truth. I'm carrying water for logic. I'm making the case that we've all got to be smarter. We all have to do better. We can't believe the hype. We have to use logic over emotion each and every time. Because this is how a communist is made. When you can convince somebody to just solely think about something emotionally, then you can start saying things like it's the imperialist United States that you don't have because they're taking from you. Right? There are people right now in Cuba. If you were to ask them, and I've seen the interviews, man on the street interviews, where people ask them, "Hey, why don't you think the arts and culture scene is doing better here? Why aren't you cranking out new music?" In particular, I saw one documentary, and it was focused on the music genre known as reggaeton, right, which is a hip-hop reggae fusion that started in Panama and blew up in Puerto Rico. Became very popular, and now it's a global sensation, known as the urban music genre. And reggaeton, or música urbana, urban music, this genre is, again, very big. Billions and billions of dollars are being generated. But I bring it up because I saw this documentary, and they asked a guy in Cuba, and he was very talented, and they asked him, why don't you think more Cubans are getting recognition for all of the contributions they've made to salsa and to other music by and large, including the reggaeton genre? And the guy says, well, look, sadly, it's because of the United States and the imperialism of the United States. And he says it with a straight face. This is a guy who doesn't possess the ability to get on the internet regularly. And that exists in Cuba. He just didn't have it. And I'm not trying to take shots at him or ridicule him or minimize him in any way. I'm trying to make a point. And my point is that he believes that hook, line, and sinker, when we know it's not true. The United States having an embargo on a communist country is not the reason for their starvation. It is the greed and the fact that communism does not work and communism kills. That is the reason for their starvation. The United States doesn't provide power to the island of Cuba. So the fact that they go 13 hours a day without electricity has nothing to do with Trump or Bill Clinton or anybody else. Every country is expected to provide for themselves. And clearly they don't want to be an ally of ours, right? They've been allied with Russia and with our enemies and communists forever. So what gives? How are you going to say that you're starving? Why? Because that's the emotion they use. Damn Yankee. Yankee, go home. Take your base out of my backyard. Stop being an imperialist. This is not a monarchy. No kings. Right? And this is what they do. And sometimes they're so effective at this message that they're able to get others. And hence, the populist is born. And again, I'm not poo-pooing the populists. Great. God bless you if you're a populist. I don't care. My issue is I just want you to be smart. I want everyone to use their brain, use your noggin. Ponle cabeza. When you think of these things, just put your mind to it. Because too many people are falling for these stories, like the one I saw today on CNN about this coach. And the coach was like, I went to school, I got a master's in law. I don't doubt that he got a master's in law. And I don't doubt that he might have been a little shocked at what he saw. But somebody that has a master's in law, if you are taught to see something a certain way, you're going to see it that way every time. And that holds true for me too. The problem is I'm looking at things from every direction, right? If it seems wrong, I'm going to say, oh, that's wrong, right? It looks like you're using intimidation. But that doesn't mean intimidation is wrong, right? I mean, when a cop pulls you over and they want to gain control of a situation, you may see them put their hand and rest it on their sidearm, right? This is something they do for many reasons, right? One, to establish some command presence. B, because maybe they need to get to it quickly because they sense there's a perceived threat to them. Maybe they're alone, they're waiting for backup. Maybe your car is tinted really dark and they don't know what's inside, so they don't want to waste time. I get it. I get all those reasons. So that may intimidate you, and good, right? You should know this is something that could potentially end very badly, so be guided accordingly. Let's try and keep it on the up and up. If I ask you for documents, give me the documents. Let's play nice with each other. I think that's fair. Now, you can say, I'm in my rights to tell him he's a clown, to tell him he's a coward, he's a this. Sure, you can do all those things. Are they positive? Are they productive? Likely not. Are they going to help the situation? Is it vinegar or is it honey? Now, you're not required to play nice. You're not required to play by those rules. You can, march to the beat of your own drum. This is America. But with that comes every other thing that's true in life, right? You walk around the streets talking smack, you're probably going to get smacked up, right? That's just how the streets work. So my point is, I think we ought to have good judgment and just do the right thing. Anyway, that's my 2 cents on this immigration stuff, and we'll keep getting to it, but I'm going to keep talking about it because this CNN Harry Enton going from Friday talking about Americans are on board to Monday saying, or earlier today, saying Trump is underwater, nobody's supporting him on immigration, this is his number one issue, and he's losing on everything. Again, this sounds to me like a coordinated effort by the media to start to hamper Trump's success there, right? Weeks and weeks of no Kings riots, too. So maybe the numbers have shifted. But I want to take a look at some of these polls when we come back from somebody I trust to be one of the best pollsters in America, John McLaughlin Associates. Him and his brother Jim, these guys do amazing work. They're incredibly accurate. And John McLaughlin scheduled to be with us straight ahead. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
By the way, your ratings are up. Congratulations. I had somebody. It's always nice to check. I like to see, even if they're friends, I like to see how are they doing. Are people listening, right?
That's
but
right.
you're doing great.
America at Night with Rich Valdez.
CNN's Harry Anton is continuing to track with all of this news the shifting view of the American people as this immigration crackdown continues. How is the president doing on immigration at this point?
In a word, Kate, oof. What are we talking about here? Take a look at this. Trump's net approval rating on immigration. Got 5 numbers for you across the screen here. A lot of focus on Gallup at minus 27. That's horrible. Quinnipiac University, minus 16. That's awful. Marist is bad at minus 9. Ipsos is minus 8. Fox at minus 7. Bad. So going from your left side, bad, to just downright terrible on the right side of your screen, the American people have turned against President Donald Trump on what was his best issue, one in which he had a positive net approval rating for most of his term, and arguably the issue that got him, of course, the GOP nomination all the way back in 2016, and one of the issues, of course, he used last year to quite a successful degree.
Absolutely. Is there signs that this is affecting his overall approval?
Okay, so you see this here, and then the question is, does this actually matter to folks? Why don't we zone in Hispanic voters, right? Because obviously a lot of the immigrants who have been affected by this have been Hispanic voters in terms of the immigration crackdown. Take a look here. Trump's net approval rating amongst Hispanics. Remember, Trump put in a historic performance last fall among Hispanic voters, did better than any Republican nominee dating all the way back since we have data in 1972. His net approval rating among Hispanics in February was pretty gosh darn good for a Republican at minus 2 points. Look at how far it's fallen now in June, according to CBS News YouGov, at minus 26 points. And I should note, CBS News YouGov is not alone on this. This is what we see in the averages as well. Donald Trump was doing historically well for a Republican amongst Hispanics in terms of his net approval rating, and now he's basically back where he was during his first term, which is quite a low approval rating, one in which has brought his overall approval rating down amongst the entire electorate.
And one thing that has been very...
Now, that is, again, CNN's Harry Enton, chief data analyst for the network. Again, following up on what he said a week ago, which was Trump is doing great on immigration. Most Americans support the deportation of all people here illegally. Now, as of yesterday, he's underwater in all these 5 or 6 different polls that he mentioned. He just rattled off. That comes alongside all of the fake news that we've been seeing about, them deporting everybody and their mother and how Trump is such a bad guy. So this looks like kids in cages all over again. It looks like a con job to me, and that's why I want to find out the nitty-gritty on this poll from one of the pros. John McLaughlin is the CEO of McLaughlin Associates. He was a pollster for President Trump in 2024, and before that, he's also a pollster for Prime Minister Netanyahu, and he usually gets it right, and his candidates typically win. John McLaughlin, welcome back, sir.
It's a pleasure to be back, Rich.
Yes, sir, likewise. Now, Harry Enton has been a standout on CNN for typically calling it the way it is and kind of breaking tradition with the network. And I'm curious because, just a few days ago on July 7th, he said that Americans are supportive of President Trump by and large, like 50 and 60%. He was doing really good. What's going on here?
Well, who got to him? The question is, it's like every one of those polls he cited, it's garbage in and garbage out. Those polls were all wrong. If those polls had been right last fall, we'd be talking about Kamala Harris today as president, not Donald Trump.
Right.
So when you think about for example, that CBS YouGov poll we talked about, it's done online. When I checked the last CBS YouGov poll that they had, they only had 35% Trump voters. We got 50% on election day, and they had 7 points more Harris voters. And those are the ones you can check. And Quinnipiac was skewed, and the Marist poll, they'll have a crosstab of who voted for Harris and who voted for Trump, but they never show you the actual number. So the polls that he listed are infamous for underpolling Trump voters and for getting it wrong. And here they're trying to affect policy on immigration for some reason. And, it's like by the way, I'm going to post this tomorrow, but we have a new national poll on 1,000 likely voters in the midterm. And again, we do likely voters. We don't do adults. We don't do registered voters. We do people who intend to vote, and we know who they are, and we know that they're voters. And Donald Trump has a 52% job approval, 43 disapprove. And we've got on the immigration question of, do you support or oppose Donald Trump deporting criminal illegal immigrants? They support 75-21. So, I mean, it's like we're being sandbagged by the media again. And go through 3 presidential elections where they skewed the polls for a political agenda.
And John McLaughlin, again, citing the fact that we have been faced with this in the past. And I think that's right? We've seen how they can make the polls look however they want, and it seems like they're doing that now because I'm not bumping into people left and right who are telling me that they're not supportive. In fact, I keep hearing the same thing. I voted for this. This is what I voted for. If there's any dissatisfaction, it's about the Epstein stuff, not about immigration. So I want to continue talking about this. I also want, once we get John back on the line, it looks like his phone wasn't working great. I want to get his take on the New York City mayoral race, but we'll do that in the next segment. But John, I understand we have you back, and the media seems to be doing what the media does.
Yes, and it has to do because Donald Trump has been so successful the last 6 months.
You got it. And amigos, we're going to continue that conversation with John McLaughlin straight ahead because I think these are important numbers that he's giving us, and I want to make sure you're able to get them. And, of course, like the deep state does when they hear the numbers, they start to garble. Anyway, we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about this New York City mayoral race as well. What are the odds there? There's a new Harris X poll that has Curtis Sliwa ahead of Mayor Adams, and the question is, why do people keep asking Curtis Sliwa to drop out of the race when Mayor Adams is the one that's trailing here? He's trailing all of them. Don't go anywhere, folks. Rich Valdez, be right back.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
The New York Times, Marquette 64%, CBS News 57%, ABC News with a slightly different question 56%. So what you're seeing essentially here is a very clear indication that a majority of Americans, in fact, when they're asked this blunt question, which I believe gets at the underlying feelings, do in fact want to deport all immigrants who are here illegally. There's no arguing with these different numbers because they're all essentially the same across 4 different pollsters.
That's Harry Enton on July 7th, just 8 days ago. What a different song he's singing. Now, John McLaughlin, I want to get, again, your take on this because we weren't able to hear everything that you said before. But this shift seems, I don't know, it seems political in nature. I hope I'm wrong.
No, I think you're exactly right because the polls that he's citing are more influenced to be anti-Trump. Like I said to you, those polls that he was citing, whether it's Quinnipiac, whether it's Marist, whether it was CBS, YouGov, they are more likely to be Democrat-leaning polls who were, back in October, they had Harris winning for president, and they were wrong, and they were way off. They were hoping for an outcome. And now they're obviously trying to double down with some policy that's not that popular with, what we would call likely voters who, maybe these other polls are doing adults, maybe they include illegal immigrants. I don't know, but they're not. They don't reflect what we're seeing in the likely voter polls, where most Americans support President Trump overwhelmingly for deporting criminal illegal aliens, and also the majority of Americans support deporting illegal immigrants. Now, on the other hand, if you talk about guest worker programs, or you talk about, where they don't get to be rewarded with citizenship, but they're allowed, if they've lived here for a while and they've paid their taxes and not committed crimes, maybe they can get some sort of work visa, and the majority of Americans agree with that. But it's not what they're portraying in these other polls. So they clearly are trying to undermine a very popular policy that President Trump has the support of the majority of Americans.
John McLaughlin, pollster to President Trump, CEO of McLaughlin Associates. I want to stay on the topic of polls, but go at a different angle. There's our beloved New York City has a mayoral race, and today the Harris X poll is come out with some interesting numbers that has let's see here, Mamdani, I like to call him Mad Manny, at 26%. And right behind him is Cuomo at 23%, and right there neck and neck with Cuomo is Curtis Sliwa. And those three are all there kind of taking everything up. Adams is way at the bottom with 13%. And yet there continues to be calls, even from some misguided MAGA people, that Sliwa should get out of the race when he's clearly polling very well for a Republican in this type of race. And it's Adams that's doing abysmally poorly in this race. What do you think of this Harris X poll?
Well, usually Harris X is pretty right. But I will say at this point in time, the most important factor is that somebody who, I grew up in the Bronx. I still live in New York. I get a lot of Republicans elected in different parts of New York. You're from New York. You understand. The only way you win in New York is to get Democrats to reject their Democrat candidate.
Yeah.
So in New York City, the Democrats are about 70% of the turnout. Republicans are only 15%. Mamdani, in the previous polls I saw, he was running in the 30s after the primary, but he wasn't the issue. Cuomo and Adams had bigger negatives in the primary, where they had negatives into the 60% level, and Mamdani was a net positive. Now people are finding out about Mamdani, where he wants to legalize prostitution, he wants to legalize human trafficking, he wants to legalize drugs. He'll drive jobs out of New York City. Things that appeal to Democrats, he's going to undermine the city. I mean, the idea of getting rid of police, the idea of letting criminals out. Crime's bad. It will get a lot worse. So I don't think it's as important to figure out who's in the race and who's out. I think it's more important to educate people to Mamdani's stands on the issues.
Sure.
And if the majority of New Yorkers are unfavorable to him, they will find the candidate that's in second place, and they will then vote for that candidate. That's what happened in the primary with Andrew Cuomo. I took a January survey for a third-party group for Betsy McCoy Save Our City, and Cuomo in the Democrat primary had a 49 favorable, 47 unfavorable. Mamdani was relatively unknown. So what happened was Cuomo had a ceiling, and on that first choice, he only got 31%. The next choice, he only got 5%. So he had a ceiling on the ranked choice voting. He couldn't win that primary. And Cuomo never really did a mea culpa. I'm sorry, I didn't do the right things during COVID. He signed the cashless bail law. There's a whole host of things that Cuomo did that was wrong that he never did a mea culpa or accounted for. And on the other hand, Mayor Adams had flipped around on abortion and sanctuary cities and immigration. And so both of them had these high negatives. So Mamdani comes up underneath them and saying, I'm the guy that could win. And he got the support and he won the first choice ballot for the ranked choice voting, and then won the ranked choice voting outright among the Democrats. Well, still, with 70% of the vote being Democrats, Mamdani only needs 75% of the Democrats to win a majority of New York City voters. So what you need to do is raise his unfavorables to over 50% among all voters, headed towards 60, and then the voters will find who the other choice is that they'll want to make the next mayor. And you don't have much time because, it's the middle of July, August, September. They start voting early in person 10 days out. So, right now, it's not who's going to drop out and who's going to be the candidate that could unite behind. It's about educating them to Mamdani's record, because the teachers union endorsed Mamdani last week. Another government employees union endorsed him this week. If these unions get behind him and support his socialist, very radically liberal policies, if they get behind him and endorse him, and if the business community sell out, you're going to have the worst mayor in the history of New York City, and we won't be safe, and the economy will really take a big hit where jobs, a lot of these six-figured educated voters who came into the primary to vote for Mamdani, their businesses will be leaving New York, and they won't be able to afford the rent at all in Brooklyn.
Mm-hmm. Makes a lot of sense. And to your point, I think people are learning more and more about Zoran the Moron Mamdani, and they're realizing this isn't the guy for me. I'm looking at an op-ed in The Hill. It's also appearing in Yahoo News today, July 15th. Adams must drop out. Curtis Sliwa is the only NYC candidate who can beat Mamdani. That's the headline. And coming from The Hill and Yahoo News, not necessarily a conservative bastion. And if that's, some of the op-ed headlines that we're seeing, I think we're seeing a real shift in the momentum because I think I agree with this headline that that's where you're going to see the contrast is with the lone Republican in the race. Whereas when you compare the other three, while they might duke it out and one's black, one's Italian, one is from Uganda, their politics are not drastically different. But for this guy taking it that much further to the left with his, privatization, or I should say, making a public option, if you will, of taking over bodegas. So it's a scary thought for sure. John McLaughlin, let everybody know how they can find you, follow you, and keep up to speed with the work you're doing.
Well, the poll numbers I was talking about, you can find on McLaughlinOnline.com. We'll put up a new national poll tomorrow. But in the meantime, these insiders in New York, they got it backwards. Before they talk about who's dropping out and who's in, they need to educate people to the faults of Mamdani, because if they don't get his negatives over 50% towards 60%, he will be the next mayor. And they've got it backwards. They need to focus on educating people to how radical he is and how bad he would be for the city. That's the first step.
Get the negatives to 60%. Noted.
Yep.
And tell everybody how they find you.
McLaughlinOnline.com. They can see the polling. All the polling I talk about, polling we release, it's all on that website.
All right, perfect. John McLaughlin, always a pleasure to have you on the show. Good chatting with you. Hope to see you really soon.
Thanks, Rich.
You bet, brother. God bless. And amigos, your thoughts, your calls, your reactions to everything. We got Minnesota, Iowa, Idaho, Wisconsin, and so much more online. And the rest of your calls right now.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S. Voted best head of hair in live late night radio 6 years in a row. It's Rich Valdez.
You split hairs. He said he was an African American. Okay, that was a mistake. He said he was Asian. He is Southeast Asian from India, his parents. And he did put the box, he checked the box later on in the transcript that he was Ugandan. But he didn't take a seat of an African American, Eric Adams and Cuomo, because he wasn't accepted in Colombia. All you're doing is making him a martyr. You're victimizing him. You're just growing his support on really a non-issue. Stick to the issues. The fact that he wants to defund the police. The fact that he wants supermarkets that are owned by the city. The fact that he wants to tax homeowners in white predominant areas. Stay focused on the issues. Adams and Cuomo, by launching this attack, are helping to make him the next mayor of New York City. I'm the only one who stands in his way because I stick to the issues.
That is Curtis Sliwa doing an interview saying that he's not dropping out of the race. He is the only candidate that can beat Mamdani. And that is the headline that's in The Hill and on Yahoo News in the op-ed section here. Adams must drop out. Curtis Sliwa is the only candidate who can beat Mamdani. So I want to get your thoughts on this, as well as college degrees, the Secret Service, and everything else that we're talking about tonight, including immigration. Let's go to Nick in Neenah, Wisconsin, WOSH. Nick, go right ahead. You're on with Rich Valdez.
Hey, Rich, thanks for taking my call.
Yes,
man, with what I do for a living, I'm a facilities manager for a hospital, okay? I'm a millennial. I'm 36 years old. I have 2 degrees, and neither one of my degrees I use. okay? 2 college degrees, and I don't use either one of them. And what I can't find are hardworking, skilled labor in this economy at all. And no, I can see where college is important, yes, for specific things. Like, yes,
like being a doctor, a nurse, an engineer, a lawyer. Yep.
Yeah, attorneys, nurses, stuff like that. Again, I work in a hospital where these people have degrees, high degrees, that are very special skills.
Yep.
But whenever it comes to, oh, I want to go get a sociology degree. I want to go get one of my degrees is political science. I want to go get a political science. What am I going to do with that?
Yeah, I'm with you. If it doesn't lead to like a state licensure for something, you're probably in this economy better off doing without it.
And what my saving grace has been that after I graduated college, I enlisted into the United States Army as an infantryman. And I learned leadership.
Thanks for your service.
Oh, thank you. I learned leadership skills. I learned how to lead people. I learned how to put my job first, put my men second, and then put me last to get the job done.
Outstanding.
And you don't see that with my generation. There's this huge age gap between myself and my peers within the same company that are in leadership positions. I'm a kid compared to all these guys. Yeah. Everybody else, they're in their mid-40s to getting ready to retire, and there's not many. My generation just doesn't want to step up. It feels like.
Well, listen, this has been the critique for millennials and Gen Z for quite a while, coming from the baby boomers and those that are beyond the baby boomers. It's that many folks in your generation, even some in mine, with Gen X, have had a good life where you didn't have to work so hard for the things you had because your parents did so well. And that's why, it's normal for people to live with their parents to 30 nowadays, right? Or, in the late 20s. Whereas in my time, if you were still living with your parents, like by your 19th birthday, you were a loser, and your parents were looking at you funny. They wanted you out. So, times have really changed. The economy's definitely changed. And it's not, I'm not saying it as a detriment to millennials. I know a lot of very, very good, productive, smart millennials that work hard. But I think times changed during the time that you guys were born, after 81 or whatever. And it's even worse today. So I think, there's an old saying about tough times creating tough men and good times creating softer men. And I believe that to be true. And I think it's cyclical. And I think we're headed towards a time where we're going to get somewhat tougher. And then we're going to see some more good times. So very good points that you bring up. You're right. I think a lot of people are in your position, especially in healthcare. Healthcare is a very specialized industry. So I have a friend, same thing. He's done very, very well with just being board certified in surgical technology. And he just recently completed a bachelor's degree in healthcare administration because he's like a director now. And, the hospital that he worked for required it. But he learned a lot along the way and had more experience than anything, and that's why they like him. And he literally had to go to college to get this degree to qualify for future advancement. And it's not hurting him, but good thing he finally found his niche and did it now rather than getting a degree in whatever and just saying, hey, I have a BA and it happens to be in music history. Does nothing for him. You know what I mean? So I see your point. Nick in Neenah, Wisconsin, again, thanks for your service. Thanks for calling in the show. Shout out to WOSH. And we're going to come right back to the speed round, St. Cloud, Minnesota, Keokuk, Iowa, Boise, Idaho, and more. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
All right, amigos, we continue. Let's go to Jake calling us from St. Cloud, Minnesota, KNSI. Jake, go right ahead.
Hi, Rich. Thanks for having me. I wanted to call in about the whole Epstein thing. I don't understand. Well, I do understand. It's a lot of lawyer speak. There's the list, the no list, the files, the no files. I think there's a list either way. Whether there's an actual black book is one thing, but there is a list of phone records and stuff like that it has been publicly, put out there by different companies and stuff like that. And then, it's always like you didn't say the right words. It's, these files or those files, this list or that list. I think the American public is really just, they want all these big shots that were doing all these bad things to children to be exposed, and everybody's afraid to expose these people because they're so powerful.
Yeah, it seems that way, right? And I agree with you. I think you're hitting it on the head right there. The issue I think we run into is the latter part of your comment, right? That they're afraid to do this because of whatever, and likely because it would compromise different things that involve national security on our end, right? There's a lot of speculation that Jeffrey Epstein wasn't just doing this because he wanted to pimp out little kids, but because he was working on behalf of an intelligence agency. Many are alleging that it was a foreign intelligence agency, and some allege that it was the United States. So if that is in fact the case, right, that now going back to what Dershowitz said, that if they unredact the names that the judge is redacting of those that are accused in the court case, then what kind of black eye does that leave America? And this is, again, I'm not in President Trump's shoes, so I don't know how we're making that determination. But I agree with you. When people feel like the bad guys are getting away with it, they're going to be upset. Thanks for the call, brother. Amigos, stick around. It's Rich Valdez. We're coming right back.
Live from the city that never sleeps. 17 miles from Madison Square Garden, New York City. It's America at Night with Rich Valdez, America's favorite late-night talk program, featuring interesting guests from around the world and calls from across America. And now, here is your host, Rich Valdez.
Hi there, good evening, and what's up, America? I am Rich Valdez, Valdez with an S, at Rich Valdez on all of the social media. Your liberty-loving Latino amigo, happy to be here with you this Tuesday night. Welcome to the program. It's a blessing to be with you. If you want to join us on our late-night national town hall conversation, give me a call. Here's the number, 833-482-5337, 833-4-VALDEZ. And there's a bunch of stuff I want to get into that's developing throughout today. The first thing I want to talk about is Apple announcing $500 million in investment in rare earth mines currently operating in the U.S. Huge win for President Trump. Apple making this announcement this afternoon, seemingly in alignment with President Trump. This strategic initiative to secure domestic rare earth minerals, as Apple is reportedly poised to announce a $500 million investment only in the United States for active rare earth mines. According to sources, and this is reported by OAN, One American News, sources that have direct knowledge of the matter, Apple, the iPhone company, intends to invest the money into MP Materials, a Las Vegas-based company specialized in rare earth mining. Meanwhile, the White House has hailed the forthcoming deal as a huge win for the Trump administration. I would agree with that. Nobody was talking about that before President Trump was, and underscoring the administration's commitment to strengthening the United States supply chain independence when it comes to critical minerals. So good on El Trumpito. And let me see, what did he say here? I think the White House, their comment was, other companies should take notice. And good, right? This is reminds me of back when President Obama said, well, what's he going to do, wave a magic wand? And guess what? Trump's been waving that magic wand. He's got Apple spending $500 million over here, making some iPhones in the United States yet again. You've got GE moving all of their operations to make their appliances back in the United States. What else? I mean, there's a whole bunch of situations. Hyundai opening up a plant in Indiana. Hyundai getting into the steel business. as well, opening a steel mill. Lots and lots of things. Honda committing to making 90% of their the cars sold in the U.S. in the continental U.S. Fantastic news, right? So many different things that are happening. And you got the trade deficit cut in half, which, again, a lot of people are out to lunch on this, but the only reason it matters is because it's bringing money into the Treasury by way of something other than income tax, right? It's now import tax. And that's okay for me. I don't do a whole lot of importing, right? So I can skirt that. And I love it when I'm able to skirt a particular tax. Income tax, you can't skirt unless you live in Florida, Tennessee, Texas, or one of these other states that's now become a no-income tax state. So I think this is a very good deal. Very, very good deal indeed. Meanwhile, you've got this publication, the Hindustan Times, and there's other ones, C-SPAN and others, are reporting, listen to this headline that they're reporting. Trump's swollen ankles and bruised hand spark fresh concerns. Of course, they are hiding his true health condition. Now, does that sound like a fair and balanced headline? Of course, they are hiding his true health condition. This sounds like straight propaganda, and that's usually what I see in some of these foreign publications. But I bring this particular one up because Joe Biden would fall up the stairs. He would be literally incoherent, unintelligible, and yet they wouldn't ask any questions, right? Then Jake Tapper writes a book and everybody, changes their tune. Meanwhile, Trump, I don't see any bruise on his hand, but they're saying they got a close-up of his hand, and it looks like it might have makeup on it. It's because it's slightly discolored from the rest of his hand, or he had makeup on his face and wiped it off on his hand. Who knows how it got there, if in fact it's makeup at all. Anyway, point is, this is the big thing they're talking about. He's talking about $500 million in rare earth minerals, mining and investment in the United States. And they're talking about a cover-up of his health when the guy's going like the Energizer Bunny. He was in New Jersey yesterday, not far from my neck of the woods, at the FIFA game at the MetLife Stadium for the World Cup. And because he's traveling back and forth and making rounds and doing all these things and negotiating arms deals with NATO and all this stuff that he's doing, they want to say that he has a bruise on his hand. I think Caroline Levitt commented on that and said, the guy's very busy, shakes a lot of hands, maybe he got a bruise. All right, whatever. I would just say, none of your business, right? I mean, since when is having a bruise on your hand something that we should be incredibly worried about? Now, I'm not saying that it does. It could mean a lot of things, right? It could mean you went for a blood test. It could mean you were hospitalized. It could mean you backhanded somebody. We're going to sit here and speculate all day long on what happened with Trump's hand when the guy's running around all over the place and he's got an amazing track record. I'm not concerned. I was concerned about Biden. Nobody cared. Now we're going to be concerned about this? Ridiculous. Anyway, we got that one. We got that one. And then we got this headline. I read it to you before because I hadn't seen it. It came out earlier today. It's an opinion piece, op-ed in The Hill. It's also being published in Yahoo News. And here's the headline. Mayor Adams must drop out. Curtis Sliwa is the only New York City candidate who can beat Mamdani. Now, as you know, Mamdani has been renamed on this program as Moron Madmani. And Moron Madmani, it has caused all of this to happen, right? He's helping Curtis do better in the polls, it seems. Now, this piece, it's a well-written piece. It makes a lot of sense. But he draws attention to something that I've been talking about for several days, right? And he says here, I'll start with this part of it because I think it's just worth reading to you. Sliwa's campaign and life align with the Republican Party's Trump-led shift towards appealing to working-class voters, emphasizing law and order and grassroots community engagement. His decades leading the Guardian Angels have earned him credibility across party lines. He notably achieved record-breaking support among Asian American voters in his unsuccessful 2021 mayoral bid. Yet some New Yorkers, Republican leaders, are pushing Sliwa to withdraw in favor of Eric Adams, a Democrat with serious ethical problems who's running as an independent because he had no chance in his own party's primary. And that's a fact. They urged Sliwa's roughly 30% support base from 2021. They want that to shift to Adams to block Mamdani. This effort reflects the broader tension with the Republican Party, short-term electoral pragmatism versus long-term party building in urban strongholds. The smarter path would be to rally behind Sliwa and urge Adams, a Democrat plagued by trust issues, for him to get out. Sliwa's support is rooted in genuine enthusiasm, not merely opposition to Mamdani. In contrast, Adams' minimal backing, as my former colleague Sid Rosenberg from WABC puts it, hinges on his being not as bad as Mamdani. Yeah, good call, Sid. That's true. This position is not the formula for a winning campaign. I agree with that. We're going to go with Adams because he's not as bad as the other pendejo. Get out of here. Governor Andrew Cuomo's recent primary loss to Mamdani is only further evidence of that same scenario. Yeah, I agree with that. So to force Sliwa out is to risk alienating his base, who may skip Election Day rather than support the Democrat. If Republicans unite behind Sliwa, it could position him to attract independents and moderate Democrats that are wary of Mamdani's agenda, potentially finally fostering a real two-party system in New York City. Sliwa's appeal to the moderate Democrats far outweighs Adams' ability to win over Republicans, and I agree with that. So Republicans who want to push Sliwa aside should also recall his longtime commitment to local grassroots Republican groups, which he's supported for many years. And that's true. So I think people need to really re-examine their position and take what John McLaughlin, President Trump's pollster, said. He just said it on this program, John McLaughlin, telling us before he even released the poll on his website. But the key here to winning this is going to be to increase the unfavorable number beyond 50% and closer to 60% for Mamdani. That means a lot of education to the electorate at large. The Sliwa campaign needs to get on their horse and continue beating the drum, explaining to people why Mamdani is no good for New York City and what his policies really, really are, while creating that contrast. And again, only he can do it. What is the abuela killing expert himself, Andrew Cuomo? What's he going to say? Oh, vote for me because I'm not that guy, although I would support most of the same things. Or what's the other one going to say? Hey, I'm actually the mayor and nobody likes me, but I'm not as bad as that guy, so vote for me? Come on. This isn't vote for Pedro. This is New York City, the greatest city on earth, in my opinion, and we've got to take it seriously. And the only candidate that can seriously beat Mamdani, who creates the most contrast and who truly stands against socialism and communism, that's Curtis Sliwa. I'll be right back.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
Thanks for what you do. You have so many people. You ask the questions that if the viewer had a microphone, they would ask that question, and you seem to always ask it right at the right time. So God bless you, my friend.
America at Night with Rich Valdez.
All right, amigos, welcome back. Rich Valdez keeping you company all night long, all across the country. And I want to give you the phone number, 833-4-VALDEZ, if you want to weigh in on what we're talking about. And part of what I want to talk about right now is, again, like I said, they're going after Trump for saying he has a bruise on his hand. They got after Trump for a million different things, legally and otherwise. And yet he does lots of good things, and they keep coming after him. And it makes you wonder, who else is getting the same type of treatment? And I want to talk about this because ultimately, I think Trump was onto something when he said, "You're fake news," right? And the fake news media, we're just talking about how they can distort polls, how they can do all sorts of things that are unsavory and untoward. And I want to talk about that with somebody from reality television. No, not Joe Exotic, the Tiger King, but someone else, known as Dr. 90210. Dr. Julian Omidi had his own, legal prosecution and went through a lot with the media and with the Department of Justice and all sorts of stuff. And he's written a book called Persecuting Trump, How Public Media Betrayed America. And I want to bring him on to talk about, really to set the stage about his story, what he went through, how he got there. And then we'll take a pause and come back and talk about his thoughts on PBS and NPR and why they should be defunded. But I want to spend a little time getting to know him and hearing his story. So let's bring him in. Dr. Julian Omidi, welcome, sir.
Rich, thank you so much for having me tonight. I appreciate an opportunity to be on your show.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Always a pleasure to talk to Dr. 90210. Some of our audience may know you from television and from your hard-fought legal battle and all the things that went on. And I guess, in your own words, tell us, how did it go down? How'd you go from being this top guy to getting caught up in this?
Well, essentially what ended up happening is I opened up a business along with my brother, and we ended up doing weight loss surgery for very obese patients, and not just weight loss surgery, but all sorts of weight loss treatments. And we did have some competitors, and all of a sudden, left-wing media started attacking us in 2010. And what ended up happening is the media got to the Justice Department, the left-wing Justice Department here in California. I'm in Los Angeles. And we had a patient who sought treatment, and unfortunately the patient was desperate about getting weight loss surgery. She lied about her heart problems. She had heart damage previously from taking the drug Fen-Phen.
Oh, yeah.
And it had damaged her heart, and she was a lead class action plaintiff. She hid that from all her doctors and her cardiologist, and she came in and had the surgery. And one of the doctors, unfortunately, nicked a blood vessel, and her heart couldn't compensate. And unfortunately, she passed away in the hospital.
Oh, boy.
The coroner ruled it an accident, and that was it. And they were going to close the case because it was an accident. This kind of thing can happen with any surgery. You get consented with it. And that was it. And, I had nothing to do with it. I didn't know who the patient was. We grew from 20 people staff to about 750 in 2 years.
Wow.
So there were, so many, there were over 175 healthcare professionals, and this was one of the doctors. And he was competent. He was, licensed, and he was a very good surgeon, but he nicked a blood vessel. It can happen. The patient shouldn't have passed away if she had a properly working heart. And unfortunately, she lied, and she was desperate to get I'm not blaming her. It's just, unfortunately, people want to get the treatment so bad, to be thin so bad, and to be healthy so bad. So what ended up happening was the FDA, about 2 months after, contacted the coroner's office. Can you imagine a federal agency contacting the coroner's office and saying, hey, we've had some insurance complaints about billing and whatnot, and there's an email memorializing this conversation, and we'd very much like to shut these guys down. So they had no idea that what we had done. They hadn't even investigated. They just wanted to shut us down right away. So this is on December 22 of 2011. I remember it because we got discovery later. And 2 weeks later, the FDA met with the coroner. The coroner wanted to close the case, saying, hey, it's an accident. It's in their papers. This is just a doctor who nicked a blood vessel. It can happen in any of these surgeries. And the FDA said, no, don't close it. Keep it open. This is on January 5 of 2012, which is about 2 weeks after December 22nd of 2011. And the very next day, the coroner called the death of this person a homicide. Can you imagine? A homicide.
Wow.
Out of nowhere. They just fabricated a homicide out of nowhere. Yeah, murder. Yeah, exactly. And 2 months after that, my brother and I were under...
was this because you think of your celebrity, because you were on TV and whatnot?
Well, we supported Trump since President Trump. Well, he wasn't the president back then. Since 2008, we liked him, and we supported conservative causes for a long time, and we've always been conservative. And I really don't know any other thing, but that there were some competitors, and the Justice Department was very, very corrupt. And I think someone, who knows what happened with us. I don't have any more discovery to give you exactly what happened, but it was just a corrupt department who wanted to bring down anyone who's successful. And they made this up, and then A couple months later, the LA Times, which is more or less like the Washington Post of the of the West Coast, they started attacking us, and we tried to explain to them, look, this is not what happened. And we found out about this patient's medical condition. We told them none of that stuff got published. So we were accused. Well, the medical board investigated. Everybody investigated, and they basically quietly shut it down. They never even issued a report clearing us, even though it was clear.
Wow.
They destroyed my business, my reputation, everything.
Well, we're going to come back and hear the rest of your story. Folks, we're on with Dr. Julian Omidi. He's a physician and formerly known as Dr. 90210 on reality TV. And he's going to talk to us about why the fake news needs to be defunded, primarily PBS. Don't go anywhere. We're going to talk about his book when we come back. I'm Rich Valdez.
Night with Rich Valdez.
I'm national correspondent Kayla Gaskins in Washington. President Trump placing his very heavy thumb on the scale to pressure GOP senators into passing a bill this week to defund public media like NPR and PBS. Senators have until Friday to pass a rescissions package, which would claw back $9.4 billion of already approved congressional spending. Included in the package is $1.1 billion of cuts to NPR and PBS. Republican Senator Rand Paul told our station WKRC,
I'll be for it because we need to cut spending, but I'm not completely against having various points of view and having public television be one of those.
The House passed the package last month.
NPR and PBS have increasingly become radical left-wing echo chambers for a narrow audience.
During a House hearing in March, NPR CEO acknowledged the concerns and told lawmakers they were addressing them.
We have work to do, and we are doing it. In May, we launched an initiative to improve our editorial review processes to make sure all pieces are fair and comprehensive.
President Trump has long taken issue with public media.
I think it's very unfair. It's been very biased.
Back in May, Trump signed an executive order instructing the Corporation of Public Broadcasting to halt all taxpayer money to NPR and PBS, accusing the outlets of fueling partisanship and left-wing propaganda with taxpayer dollars.
So that is a little bit of what's going on here with PBS and the publicly funded media like NPR. And I want to continue our conversation with Dr. Julian Omidi. He is formerly known as Dr. 90210, got caught up in his own legal drama with the fake news and with the Department of Justice and being charged for lots of things, currently in the appeals process of his own case. And he wrote a book called Persecuting Trump, How Public Media Betrayed America. And I find it interesting coming from somebody who's been through this, right? Not just observing and saying, hey, here's what happened to Trump, but here's what happened to Trump and similar kind of happened to me. And I think that's the unique angle of this. Doc, welcome back, and tell us a little bit about, what inspired you to write the book specifically.
Well, what inspired me to write the book was I've been listening. When I was practicing dermatology, I listened to NPR driving to different clinics about 2 hours away from Los Angeles, where I treated skin cancer. And NPR was always left-wing, but it actually became an activist organization once Trump ran for presidency. Mm-hmm. And I've noticed how unfair they are to President Trump. For example, when President Trump was being prosecuted, they went after him without any facts. There was a judge, Judge Merchant, who prosecuted him for the 34 felony counts. And that was the most ridiculous thing ever. This judge supported an organization, gave money to them, called Stop Republicans. Okay, and he still didn't recuse himself. And his daughter was the campaign manager, actually was hired as a big campaign manager since she got hundreds of $1 million for her organization from Kamala Harris. And he still didn't recuse himself. it was so biased, but NPR and PBS kept saying, oh, well, this guy is the most deliberative person ever. He listens to both sides, which is nonsense. It's a total lie. And that's what they did to me, and that's what they did to President Trump. And in his civil case, he has a $454 million judgment for what? For nothing. Essentially, nobody lost any money. There was no fraud. I mean, fraud means, you're trying to take money from someone. You actually lose money. Nobody lost any money. There was just a dispute about the value of certain properties. And, he wasn't trying to fool the banks. He had some appraisers who put some numbers on them. Whether they were right or wrong, it didn't mean that President Trump or his children had anything to do with it. It was so unfair what they did to him. And they called this prosecutor, Letitia, they called her a giant slayer on NPR and PBS, which is so incredibly offensive. It'd be funny, but it's just so offensive that they were lionizing this person for bringing down such an incredible person, and putting this judgment on him, $454 million. And since I've been listening to NPR, I've talked to a lot of people. My case is not isolated. There are so many people this happens to. I think President Trump is right. What happened was the Justice Department did become corrupt, and it does need to be cleaned up. And if they, basically get a hold of you, then 100%, almost 100% you're convicted. I think their conviction rate is 90 to 95% of the people who go to trial. And the people who don't, and actually most people don't go to trial. About 90, 95% of people don't go to trial. So you've got a very, very tiny fraction of people who actually go to trial and are found not guilty. This process is really not fair. The government has so much money, so much funding, and the judges basically give so much leeway to them. They give them whatever jury instructions they want. And with that, they can basically destroy anybody. And that's what they did to President Trump. And, one of the things the NPR and PBS did is they said they weren't going to allow any statements from President Trump because they were talking about how he is not someone who tells the truth. So they said they didn't want that to affect the audience. So essentially, they were censoring President Trump from speaking on NPR and PBS. So, and these people are getting about $1 billion every year. Every 2 years rather. And that's not a big chunk of money when you consider the entire federal budget. But the problem with it is that PBS reaches about 160 million households a month, and NPR reaches about 100 million people a month. So altogether, you can say 260 million. There's probably some overlap. So let's say 250 million people, and the entire population of the United States is 340 million last year. So you figure they're reaching so many people, they're indoctrinating people, and it's like the mouthpiece of the Democratic Party, and they're fooling people into believing all their lies. And it's much worse than MSNBC. It really is. Or CNN. They are. When you listen to the commentators, the people they have there, I've listed it in my book, Persecuting Trump. Every single person there, their editor is left wing. Their hosts are left wing, and they lied to Congress. They went in front of Congress. The CEO of NPR and the CEO and president of PBS, they went in front of Congress and they lied to them. Okay, what PBS did is especially offensive. People say NPR is bad, but PBS is worse. The PBS NewsHour is the worst. The day before the congressional hearings, on March 25 of 2025, the hearing was on March 26 of 2025. So the day before, they instituted two co-editors of PBS NewsHour. One of them is Amna Nawaz, okay, far left liberal who supports Kamala Harris, and she actually said on her Instagram feed, "I am biased." She says she's biased, and the day before the congressional hearing, they instituted her. And then the other person is Jeff Bennett. I think he's also far left, and he posts he basically reposts things from Hakeem Jeffries and he's a far left Democrat.
And Doc, I just want to weigh in and say that my world here of talk radio tends to lean conservative, to the right of center. The big difference is I'm not taking any money from the government. So if they want to be lefties, they can be lefties all they want. They just don't do it on your dime and my dime. What do you think the legal or the ethical case is for actually defunding NPR and PBS?
Absolutely. So there's President Trump had a three-pronged approach, and that's actually in the book if you look at it. The first approach was trying to get rid of the Corporation of Public Broadcasting board members, and that didn't work out. There was a Democratic appointed judge who said that President Trump does have the authority to remove them, but they can change their bylaws under the EC law and basically prevent President Trump from to remove them. So that ended. Then the other thing that's happening is the rescission package, which I'm sure you'll talk about in a few minutes. And then the other thing is President Trump did an executive order to defund PBS and NPR through the Corporation of Public Broadcasting. And they say they have a First Amendment right, and you're absolutely right. They don't, because there's a case actually there's a Supreme Court case called Rust, and this was a case where family planning. It was Title 10, and Title 10 said that family planning clinics cannot get funding for abortion. And then when it came to Ronald Reagan's term, Ronald Reagan basically interpreted it and said that you can't even talk about abortion. And then they got sued, and the Supreme Court sided with Ronald Reagan and saying, look, you can talk about abortion all you want if you weren't getting federal money. But now that you're getting federal money, okay, we can stop that. Okay, you cannot basically say whatever you want to say. And they're absolutely wrong about the First Amendment. If they didn't collect government funds, they could say whatever they want. Now that they collect government funds, basically, they are not permitted to say whatever they want to say. And in their own mandate, if you look at their mandate, when Congress created them, they said they have to serve the entire public. They're not serving the entire public. They're only serving the elites from the left coast and the East Coast. That's it. Their listenership has dropped from 60 million, well, at least NPR has dropped from 60 million to 42 million in 4 years, from 2020 to 2024. So
isn't it funny how you don't have to have good ratings when somebody else is paying the bills? I think that's just such an interesting tell. Doc, I don't want to cut you off, but we have to take a pause right here. We're going to come right back and wrap up with you. If you don't mind, stick around for a couple of minutes. Folks, we're coming right back with Dr. Julian Omidi, Dr. 90210.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
I'm so glad to be on your show, Rich. It's just an amazing broadcast that I hope the rest of America listens to every day.
America at Night with Rich Valdez.
All right, amigos, welcome back. We wrap up our conversation with Dr. Julian Omidi. He's the author of the book, How Public Media Betrayed America. The main headline there, Persecuting Trump, How Public Media Betrayed America. And, Doc, you mentioned a number of things like the legal and the ethical case for defunding NPR and PBS, and I think you're right. You talked about how there's a lack of transparency. You talked about how there's a need for judicial reform, and I think we see that all over the place. And I think people are very intrigued by these topics. That you're hitting all the nails right on the head. If people want to get a copy of the book, where do they go?
They can just go to Amazon and Kindle. It's Persecuting Trump, an expose of the unjust weaponization of publicly funded media. And I just want to say one thing. These organizations are not neutral. They need to be defunded. They're basically spreading propaganda, parading around like they're unbiased. and kids watch them, they're exposed to this garbage as if it's the truth. In reality, it's highly partisan and it's left-wing. And I have 400 sources in the book that go into detail about what's going on with them. The truth is clear. They're not entitled to a penny of American citizens' money. And I hope the rescission bill passes this week by Friday, and we'll be done with them.
Amen
and thank
to
you so
that.
much for having me on your show, Rich.
My pleasure. Now, if people want to follow you, are you on social media? Is there a website they can go to?
I'm only on Instagram, and I don't really have much of a social media, so I'm sorry about that.
No, that's fine. I just want to make sure people can keep up.
I never got into that. Just I will try to set something up.
Very good. Well, folks, again, the book, Persecuting Trump, How Public Media Betrayed America, and the author, Dr. Julian Omidi. I want to thank you for being with us, being generous with your time. Godspeed in everything you do, sir.
God bless you, Rich. Thank you for having me.
You bet. Thank you, Doc. And amigos, to your calls we go. Let's see. Let's go to Frank, Cumberland, Maryland, WCBC. Frank, go right ahead.
I'd like to suggest that you get someone on the show to tell us about the history of education, not only in the United States, but also Europe. Now, earlier in the show, you said that you expressed doubts about what the value of college education. Well, that's the way it used to be before World War II. Before World War II, very few people went to college. The only people who went to college were wealthy people, and it was considered a luxury. But because of the veterans, we wanted to do something for the veterans. A college education was like a reward for being a soldier in World War II. And it was highly touted after. People have always said the GI Bill was one of the greatest things that happened to the U.S., but that's not necessarily true. And we're getting right back to what we used to be, where college is like an indoctrination in a religion, only this time it's not the Christian religion, it's the secular religions. So would you please get someone on your show who could tell us more about the history of education and how it's changed?
Yeah, I love the suggestion, and I definitely will. And I think you're right. And I think another big thing is, we have the Industrial Revolution that, kind of kicked off in the earlier part of the 20th century, and the advent of where we are now, where we have this digital revolution, the advent of AI, and a whole lot of other things that I think make it a very different time, but yet very similar to the time that you're referencing. And that's where the I guess the correlation coefficient is, the fancy word for what I'm looking for, but that's where the overlap is, right? That overlap is there, where we're moving towards a time where we don't need all these corporate people anymore, right? In the past, we were building up corporate America. There was a need for all these people that could write well and speak well and answer phones, and now you can have an AI assistant, write better and clearer and more accurately than many college graduates, and a lot quicker. And you have phone assistants, AI phone assistants. You don't need receptionists the way you used to. So it's there isn't that need for these trained people anymore. So people need to get with the times. And yeah, excellent addition. I was thinking of doing this topic anyway, but I liked your approach because it's kind of like, maybe like a little bit of a primer on the evolution of education from the Enlightenment through today, because it's taken a few turns. Very, very good. Thank you, Frank. I appreciate it. And we'll come back with the rest of your calls and more. Iowa, Idaho, San Francisco. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
AOC, look, I think she's very nice, but she's very low IQ. And we really don't need low IQ. Between her and Crockett, we're going to give them both an IQ test to see who comes out best. Now, I took my test. I took a real test at Walter Reed Medical Center, and I aced it. I got every one of all those questions right. Now it's time for them to take a test.
That's President Trump outside the White House today, challenging AOC all out crazy and Jasmine Crockett to an IQ test. Now, what I want to know is this an IQ contest, one versus the other? I don't know. But I want to get to the calls here. Let's quickly go to David in San Francisco. Speed round. Make it quick, David. Go right ahead. KSFO.
Oh, well, I was amazed by your last two, your interview and the last caller. They do know that ignorance is expensive, and to censor a whole network, all the different voices on that network.
Who's censoring the network? They're talking about defunding it.
Yeah, ignorance is expensive, right? You think that
I could care less about ignorance. I care about paying for it. I don't want to pay for their information. That's all.
That explains you. You don't care about ignorance. Okay, thanks.
No, I say I don't care about their ignorance. They can be as ignorant as they want. I care about your ignorance. That's why we let you on the show all the time, David. We have to show the world how ignorant the people from San Francisco are, the liberals. Otherwise, there's a lot of good conservatives. Shout out to KSFO. David hung up on me this time. How's that for a change? Anyway, shout out to Tony in Keokuk, Iowa, KOKX. Shout out to Paul and everybody else that's on hold. Sorry. Hasta la próxima. Take care. Good night. And God bless you, America. I'm Rich Valdez.